Good afternoon, students. Myself Manjit Singh, working as a senior lecturer in electronics and communication engineering at Government Polytechnic College, Bhinda. Today, I am going to deliver a lecture on cellular concepts. So, this comes under the subject wireless and mobile communication, that is a subject in 6th semester ECE. Now, this is about the how cellular phone works, means what is the basic concept of this cellular system. So, in this the geographic area you see is divided into different segments called cells, they are hexagonal in shape. So, each cell has a tower, it is clearly visible. So, that tower makes the link between the system and the user, that is a mobile phone. So, this figure is an illustration of a cellular system, means it tells how the cellular systems works. Means in this system the towers represents base stations which provide radio access between the mobile users and the mobile switching centers. Means mobile users are the subscribers who are moving in these cells carrying their mobile phones, and MSC is the mobile switching center. This is the main system, we can say this is the main exchange of a mobile system. It is the main control center called mobile switching center. This center is directly linked to all the cells or all the towers in the cells, and although this system links to the PSTN. PSTN means public switch telephone network, means our basic landline network, landline telephone network structure. So, if we call from our, suppose for example, if we call from our landline telephone, then first this call will go to the mobile switching center. After this the call will go to the tower of the area where the mobile phone subscriber is operating or where he is moving. So, now let us discuss theoretically what is cellular concept. The cellular concept means the concept of the cellular system actually was a major breakthrough in solving the problems of the spectral congestion and user capacity. Spectral congestion means how to use the spectrum, how to use the frequency spectrum optimally, and the user capacity means how to handle the large capacity of users of mobile phones, how to make the optimum solution of these two terms we will discuss in this cellular concept. It offered very high capacity, means it the optimum cellular system offers very high capacity in a limited spectrum, means with limited number of frequencies, means in a limited spectrum. So, here each cellular base station means in, if we see in this diagram. So, these towers are the cellular base stations which operate in a cell. So, here each cellular base station is allotted a group of radio channels, means each station is allotted a group of radio frequencies called radio channels which are used to make communication, to be used with the small geographical area which is called cell, which is shown in a hexagonal shape in this. Now, first in this cellular concept or in this cellular system, first let us discuss what is a cell. What is a cell? A cell is the basic geographical unit of a cellular system. It is the basic unit which is allotted to the geographical area which we are going to cover in this cellular system. A cell is relatively a small area, means it is relatively physically a small area, small geographical area is represented by a cell that is served by a single transmitter or receiver unit, means where the single transmitter or receiver provided the services to the mobile phone users of that area. So, mobile operating within this area, within this geographical area, use that cell site which is provided in this cell to communicate with the rest of the cellular network. So, we will communicate with the rest of the cellular network through this cell site which is located in this geographical area which is called the cell. Now, here let us see, this is the actually diagram of the cells. Here hexagonal shapes of cells are used. We will discuss next why these hexagonal cells are preferred. So, in this whole diagram is actually divided into 3 groups with the dark shaded lines. These are called clusters. We will also discuss these clusters in details later on. So, this area is divided into 3 clusters and each cluster have 7 cells, 7 hexagonal geographical area with a transmitter receiver which is represented by a tower in each cell. So, these are actually the cells. Here at the center of each cluster there is a cell is named as cell 1, then at the side cell 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So, in a cluster there may be 7 or more cell, we will discuss this later. So, here the single high power transmitter, what is the concept of cells? In cells the single high power transmitter is replaced with many low power transmitters providing coverage to one small portion of the service which is called as a cell as shown in the figure. Means instead of using a single high power transmitter over a larger area, each area is divided into different segments called cells and each cells uses the transmitter and receiver to provide the services in that area. So, here in each cell each base station is allocated a portion. The total number of channels and nearby base stations is assigned different group of channels, means different group of frequencies. So, in a cluster every cell has different frequency, means every cell the transmitter or receiver at the every cell is allotted with the unique frequency which is different from the nearby areas, and this frequency may be reused in different in another cluster. That is why here in cell 1 is located in each cluster, cell 2 is again in each cluster, cell 3 is again in each cluster, means we can reuse the frequencies like this. Now, here due to these close wire transmitters, the interference between co-channel cells is kept below the acceptance level. There may be interference. This interfere we will also discuss later on. Sorry. As demand for services increases, the number of base stations may be increased to provide additional increase in radio spectrum. This is the problem which will be solved. Now, you have seen in the last diagram that the shapes of the cells were hexagonal. Now, the question is why we use hexagonal geometry in cellular system, means why the shape of the cells is hexagonal. Now, there are mainly 3 types of choices to select a cell shape, means a cell can be of 3 types. It can be a square shaped cell, it can be a triangle shape, or it can be a hexagonal, even it can be circular also. Now, all these 3 shapes have same distance between the centers, but we mainly use hexagonal shapes, means these are almost similar, means these shapes have almost similar distance between the centers to the corners. Reason behind is that the cell must be designed to serve the weakest mobile in the surface area. Weakest mobile means the mobile which is far away from the center, means which is at the maximum distance from the center, means these mobiles are typically located at the edge of the cell. Now, for a given distance between the center of a polygonal and its farthest parameter points, the hexagonal has the largest area of 3, means in this case if we discuss the distance from the center to the edge, the hexagonal shape is best. Here all the points have the same area from the center, but circle is more best, but we will see the disadvantage of the circles. By using hexagonal geometry, less number of cells can cover the markets. So, with this less number of cells are required to cover the market. This concept can be more clear with the following points. So, these are the some points why we prefer hexagonal cells. Hexagonal permits easy and manageable analysis of the cellular system. This is the first point why we prefer, means it permits us the easy and manageable analysis of the geographical area which we are going to cover. In cellular pattern, adjacent circles may leave in gap between or create overlapping, that we will see in next slide. How by and these hexagonal cells are used, by circular cells are not used. Gaps will result in call disruption, since calls will drop due to poor reception of the signal in the handset in these gap areas. Now, these are the shapes if we use the circles instead of hexagonal shapes. Now, shaded portion shows the gap between when we use the circle instead of the hexagonal cells. If we use circular cells, then there will be a gap, there will be points which are the farthest from the center of the neighboring cell. So, to cover that gaps, we will make these cells these circles closer. So, it will cause overlapping, it will cause interference. So, that is why the hexagonal is preferred even over the these circular shapes. Now, what is cluster? As I told earlier, the area is further divided into cluster. Each cluster is having a 7 number of cells. So, what is this cluster? How these clusters are formed? Means why and how these cells are again grouped into clusters. A cluster is a group of cells, means it is a geographical area which has a number of cells. No channels are reused within a cluster, means if we see in the last figure, each cluster there was a cell 1, cell 2, cell 3 up to cell 7, but they are not repeated in that cluster. Not repeated means frequency is not reused in the cluster, it is reused in the neighboring or in the next cluster. The interference in adjacent channels is reduced by allocating different frequency bands or channels to the adjacent cells, so that their coverage can overlap slightly without causing interference. So, in the cluster, the adjacent cells have different frequency bands, means the channels in the adjacent cells are allotted different frequencies, so that there will be less adjacent channel interference. In this, this is why the cells can be grouped together, which is named as a cluster, means in a cluster each cell have a different frequency and frequency is reused in the neighboring cluster. So, this is the example of a cluster. So, here is a cluster with size 7, in this n is the size of a cluster, it is 7, it may be more or less, it depends upon the strategy of the mobile company, but in this cluster there are 7 cells, cell 1, cell 2, cell 3, cell 4, cell 5, 6 and cell 7. Each cell have its unique tower for transmitting and receiving the signal. The frequency allocated to each cell is different from each other, means frequency is not reused in this cell. Now, the middle hexagonal represents the cell size, cell sites. So, in the cell there is a tower in the center of the each cell, means the central site of the cell contains the tower. This is where the base station radio equipment the equipment which transmits or receives the radio waves. So, this center point is the point where the base station radio equipment is located, and their antennas are located on the towers. Often these clusters contain 7 cells, but other configurations is also possible, means there will be possibility of other value of n. Now, there is a contradictory requirement that need to be balanced when choosing the number of cells in a cluster for a cellular system, means there is a not clear cut method or a formula to decide the number of cells in a cluster. It is a strategical point of the company which is operating in this cellular system, and to balance between the frequencies allotted and the interference or the level of the services, that is interfacing level and number of channels allocated to each cells, means the number of frequencies allocated. Now, cell size. Now, what will be the size of the cell? How the size of the cell is decided? Now, even the number of cells in a cluster in a cellular system can help manage the number of users that can be accommodated by using all the cells smaller. It is possible to increase the overall capacity of the cellular system. So, means the size of the cell, it manages the level of services, it depends upon the number of subscriber users which are carrying their mobile phones in that area. So, cell size is not fixed. So, gradually a cell radius is at about 500 meter to 1 kilometer. Anything closer would lead to interference and results in a poor quality services. So, 500 meter is approximately the minimum cell radius, and it can be it can vary up to 1 kilometer. It depends on the area where the tower or cell site is located. Suppose for example, in the cities where population density is more, the cell size is small, the cell radius is less, maybe 500 meters. If the population density is less, then the cell area will be large, it may be up to 1 kilometer or even more in rural areas. So, if we locate cells very close, even lesser than 500 meters, then it will lead to the interference, co-channel interference, and it will make the quality of the services poor. Now, the different types of cells are given different names according to their size and functions. So, there are 5 types of cells according to their size, means their radius and their functions. So, these are named as macro cells, micro cells, pico cells, selective cells and umbrella cells. So, in next slide we will discuss all these cells one by one. Now, what is macro cells? So, macro cells are large cells, means macro means large, macro term defines the large, micro is small. So, macro means that these are large cells, where these large cells are used for in remote or less populated areas where the population is not more. There may be 10 kilometer or possibly more in diameter, means macro cells may have diameter up to 10 kilometers or even more. It depends upon the area where the cell is located. Generally in remote areas, in rural areas, countryside areas where population is very rare, population is very less. So, these large size cell sizes are large. So, these cells are called macro cells. Now, next is micro cells. Micro cells, micro generally define the small size. So, micro cells are those that are normally found in densely populated areas, means these areas where the population is more, the density of the population is more, generally in urban areas, city areas, in metro areas. So, here the size of the cell is small to give the best services to all the users. So, here the size may be of a diameter of around 1 kilometer, mean here the diameter of the cell may be 1 kilometer, even may be less, it depends upon the population of that area where the cell is located, means micro or small cells. So, this is the diagram of all the cells. First is macro cells, means there is a very large area of the cell. At the center there is a tower, there is a base station which carries the receiver and the transmitter. In next diagram, in the same area, in same geographic area, 7 small cells are located, means there are 7 towers, 7 base stations, each base station having a group of channels, having a number of channels for transmitting and receiving in that area. So, here the number of channels are 7 times as compared to macro cells. So, next is pico cell. Pico cell we will discuss in next slide. In a large cell, so here we see a macro cell is large cell. In the corner of the macro cell, this macro cell, again one small cell is located, means there is extra tower base station for receiving and transmitting, particularly in that small area. That cell or that tower or that geographical location is called the pico cell, which is the part of a macro cell. Now, what is the definition of pico cells? Pico cells are generally used for covering very small areas of buildings, means suppose in a remote area, in a remote less populated area, at one place there is the dense population, there is a more population. Suppose there is a large building in one side or at the one corner or at the one location of that big cell, or there are, for example, there are tunnels in a area where coverage from a large cell in the cellular system is not possible. So, suppose in tunnel the signal drops in the tunnels. So, at that tunnel we will put another base station, we will put another tower to transmit and receive the signals in that tunnel, and that small cell is called the pico cell. Means pico cell is located in a macro cell, it is the part of the cell which is used to cover the that specific area. Now, selective cells, next cells are selective cells. Selective cells are also special type cells, they are also used to cover the specific requirements in a specific cell. Sometimes cell termed selective cells may be used where full 360-degree coverage is not required. For suppose there we do not require coverage in all directions from the tower, tower is located in the center and it will cover 360-degree around it. Suppose if we do not require the coverage in all directions, we require the coverage in a specific area. Suppose in that location there is a population in a specific site, we do not need to cover all the other side. So, there that a special type of cell is used, which cell is called selective cells. Now, umbrella cells. Now, what is umbrella cell? Another type of cell, it is also a special type of cell known as an umbrella cell. Its name given at it covers the geographical area, it covers the smaller cells like umbrella, is sometimes used in instance such as those where a heavily used road crosses an area where there are no micro cells. Suppose in a remote area or in a less populated area which is served by normal cells, there covers a road where there is a heavy traffic at the road. So, due to heavy traffic at the road, the number of people using mobile phone will be more on that road. So, under normal circumstances, this would result in a large number of handovers. If on that road we do not use umbrella cells, then there will be drops, handovers. Handovers we will discuss in the next slide. What are handovers? As people driving along the road would quickly cross the micro cells, because there the people will cross the micro cells very frequently. There will be handovers or call drops if we do not provide some special tower in that area. That special type tower provided for that area is called umbrella cell. So, look at this diagram. So, there are micro cells, there are 7 micro cells, each having its unique tower, and there in the central cell there is another tower, means there is another base station which is extra, which is special tower which covers the entire geographical area, and that cell is called umbrella cells. It looks like umbrella, it is covers the all area. So, to reduce the number of handouts or call dropping, if there is a large density of population crossing that area or moving in that cell. Now, the next major issue in cellular concept is interference. So, what is interference? Interference is a major limiting factor in the performance of the cellular system. So, if we evaluate the performance of the cellular system, the major point in that is interference, which makes the services poor in that area. So, we can say that interference is the major bottleneck in increasing capacity and it is responsible for dropped calls. So, it is the major bottleneck due to the increasing capacity and it is also responsible for the dropped calls, means by these calls are dropped. Interference in the control channels leads to the miss and block calls. It leads to miss and block calls due to interference of the neighboring channels. It is more severe in urban areas. It is more severe in urban areas rather than in rural areas due to the large number of base stations and mobiles. Due to large number of base stations, micro cells means the cells are closer to each other. So, there is a large interference in that area. So, here the interference also causes the problem of the crosstalk, along with this dropped calls and missed calls. Now, types of interference. There are mainly two types of interference. Interference is of two types. First is called co-channel interference, means it is the due to co-channel, and the next is adjacent channel interference. It is the interference from the adjacent channel. Now, what is co-channel interference? Co-channel interference is one of the primary forms of man-made signal degradation associated with the digital radio. It is mainly the major problem which is man-made, and it is responsible for signal degradation associated with the digital radio communication. Co-channel interference occurs when the same carrier frequency reaches the same receiver from two separate transmitters. So, if there is a signal of same carrier frequency reaches from the two separate transmitters at a same receiver, then this interference is called co-channel, because it is from the co-side channels. Co-channel interference which arises from the transmission by neighboring base station is a fundamental characteristics of the cellular system today. So, it is the fundamental characteristics which is due to neighboring base stations surrounding that cell. Co-channel is also called a crosstalk from two different radio transmitter using the same frequency. It is due to the two different radio transmitters which are using the same frequency of operation, or it is the confusion. We can say it is just a confusion in the receiving part of the cell phone due to the second signals being detected the same frequency. It is the confusion for the receiver, because at the receiver there are two signals with the same frequency, one is from that cell, other is from the co-channel or from the neighboring channel. So, there are several causes of co-channel interference. So, the reason of co-channel interference are several. Three examples are listed. First is adverse weather conditioning. Due to adverse weather, due to bad weather in area, the co-channel interference may occur. This is not a permanent type. So, this occurs rarely due to weather conditions, poor weather conditions. Second is poor frequency planning. So, this depends on the planning of the system, means if your frequency planning is poor, your reuse of frequency is not correct, your cellular cluster size is not correct, then this comes under the poor frequency planning. Next is overly crowded radio spectrum. This is the third major cause, and this cause is related to the population or the density of the area. So, in dense area the co-channel interference is more as compared to in a less density area. Overly crowded radio spectrum means the radio spectrum which is overly crowded. Spectrum means a group of frequencies. So, where there is a more frequency are used from the spectrum. So, this also causes the co-channel interference. So, this is co-channel interference. So, 4 different clusters are shown. So, in each cluster have 4 cells, and cell number 1 is shown 4 times, means it is in 4 cluster. Cell number 1 means same frequency is used in each cell, where it is marked 1. So, these comes near. Cell number 1 in upper cluster is not far from the cell number 1 in the lower cluster, then it is also not far from the other cells. They are just located at the edges of the square. So, due to this closer, each these cells reuse the frequencies, they use the same number of frequencies, they causes interference. So, cell number 1 of the left side causes the interference to the cell number of the right side, and similarly all these cells causes co-channel interference to each other. Now, next is adjacent channel interference. Adjacent means neighboring channel interference. So, co-channel interference was due to same frequency reached in a transmitter from reached in a receiver from 2 transmitters. Adjacent channel interference is the interference from the neighboring channels. Signals which are adjacent in frequency to the desired signal causes adjacent channel interference. It is caused by the frequency of the signals of the nearby cells. This interference is caused by the extraneous power from signal in the adjacent channels. So, it is due to the high power of the adjacent channels. ACI means adjacent channel interference is brought about primarily because